people issues with business demands, because business demands will be very different the moment everybody is back in office in full steam. And of course, this will invoke leadership to handle this adversity in a very, very different way. So to cover these aspects, we have some very eminent people. We have Mr. Anil Sachdev, who's the mentor and founder of the School of Inspired Learning. He also mentors the FICCI HR committee. We have Mr. Rajiv Dubey, who's the former chair of the FICCI HR committee and currently the principal advisor of Mahindra and Mahindra. He, of course, had a long stint in Mahindra and the industry per se. And we have Ms. Veena Saru, who's a senior member of FICCI HR committee and a HR professional in her own right. With these words, I would probably want to hand over the baton to Mr. Anil Sachdev to take the proceedings forward and drive this whole session. Thank you so much.
Namaste. First of all, I welcome each one of you to this time and to this space. It's to say that this is these times are unprecedented is, I think, the understatement of the year. But let me begin by hoping that each one of you and your family members are well, healthy, learning to deal with the current situation. And I sincerely wish you and you all the very best. I have absolutely no doubt about it that the world will emerge better and stronger because of this journey. I think Mother Nature and the planet has their own way of giving guidance to us on how we need to lead our lives and how we need to operate in this world. And this guidance has got some extraordinary features. On one hand, there is the tremendous shock that suddenly we have been absolutely shocked by what has happened because nobody expected it. Nobody prepared for it. No strategic plan of the world's best companies prepared for something like this. On the other hand, I live in Gurgaon and I look outside, I see the color of the sky I have never seen in my lifetime. The quality of the air is something I have never had better air. So there are these all kinds of interesting paradoxes present at the same time. The huge challenges and the other side of the challenges, the opportunity. So in this, we are being guided, and I was moved to say that we should especially focus on those who in this time may require some inner guidance and also guidance of a community so they get empowered to deal with the current crisis. With these words, may I request Rajiv Dubey, my dear friend and fellow traveler, who's been such an eminent leader. And what I love most about Rajiv is that he knows how to take tough calls in business when needed, but he always does that with the deepest compassion and the spirit of serving the well-being of all. So Rajiv ji, over to you.
Thank you, Anil ji, and welcome everyone who's on this webinar. I'll briefly set out, I have been told to cover the business continuity aspect. So let me start straight away by saying that in this time of uncertainty and fear, there are 4 focus areas that we as leaders and as members of organizations need to take responsibility for. And it's important that we need to take responsibility and not get stuck in the victim syndrome, where we become helpless and don't know what to do. So we have to take responsibility. 4 focus areas. One, obvious, referred to already, is cash. Cash is king. Number 2 is people. People and people processes, especially the decision-making process in teams. Number 3 are supply chain issues. And number 4 is leadership behavior. So 4 focus areas: cash, people, supply chain, and leadership. And I will get into some detail to apply to each of these focus areas, the lens of reboot, reinvent, reignite. So I will explain that also. And finally, the basic message is that this is a time where we need resilience, we need determination, we need imagination, and we need to embrace change. So let me quickly come back and talk a little bit about the four focus areas. So cash, it's clear that to survive, we need to gather as much cash as we can and to disperse it as slowly as it can. Now, to a diverse audience like this, I obviously cannot give any details, except to say that we are talking about gathering. It is about collecting cash. It could be from past revenues, because for most of us, revenues has come down to zero. There could be banks, there could be financial institutions, there could be government subsidies, government concessions. So all these things you have to explore. And then how do you disperse this as slowly as possible and as humane, Anilji mentioned, a way as possible, especially for those who are most affected. And so here we are talking about operational expenses, we are talking about capital expenses, and we are talking about working capital. So this is about cash. People, now it's almost stating the obvious, but people are going to be absolutely crucial, especially teamwork. How do we make sure that we work well as teams? So the whole concept of teaming, psychological safety, so that people can speak up. And because we have to solve problems together, it has to be an iterative problem. We are struggling to find out what is a relevant question and then what is the answer. So we need to make sure that all members of our team have the psychological safety so that they can speak up without fear, to state what the problem is and then to find the solution. And then, of course, we need to have distributed leadership. You can't have one man necessarily taking all the shots, because there are so many problems, the problem points are shifting. So we need to make sure that we empower people and we have a problem-solving process or methodology in the organization that allows for this distributed leadership and which allows for decision-making to get taken quickly, rapidly, and in an iterative and agile way. Here, I'd like to say that it is very important that the morale and motivation of our people is kept up. Hope is very, very important. The issue of migrant labor is one that is vital for the supply chain. And again, I know it's obvious, but we need to know that we are vitally dependent on migrant labor. A lot of them have suffered a lot. They have gone back. How do we give them the assurance and the motivation to come back? And logistically, how do we make it possible? There is vast scope for dialogue here between central government, state government, district administration, employers, workers, unions, civil society, media. So this kind of a platform where there is dialogue so that we are able to bring our migrant labor back, I think is going to be vital, because as we all know, if they don't come back, then even those organizations that have permanent labor will be able to do nothing, because the supply chain is, if you like, dependent on, and the backbone of that supply chain is migrant labor. Oh, this brings me automatically to the supply chain, where we need to be able to read the signals to recognize what can become a crisis. And this crisis point can shift over time. The bottlenecks can shift during this long extended crisis. So we need to be very alert. Which part of the supply chain do we need to be managing and when? And very important, our actions should be such that we can keep the trust and confidence of the supply chain partners, because we are going to need them when demand comes back, when supply comes back. So we must not do things today which will permanently destroy those members of the supply chain that we will need as partners. I come now to the fourth point of the four focus areas. It's not one which is my brief today. I'm sure Anilji and Veena-ji will talk about it. It's leadership behavior. I just want to say that leadership is going to be crucial here, regardless of the size of the organization. Now, the leadership must communicate and must take decisions such that it reflects the reality and yet gives hope and is empathetic in its dealing with partners. Empowerment is crucial. I already said we need distributed leadership. So you can't have too much of one person wanting to take all the decisions if at all possible. So the role of the leader then becomes to be clear and articulate what the purpose of the organization is, what are the values, what are the goals, set the direction, and then allow the team and the technical experts to take over. So you have to show resilience, embrace change, I already mentioned, and you have to be action-oriented. Okay, so these are the 4 focus areas. I said this is the time to look at these 4 focus areas through the lens of reboot, reinvent, and reignite. Very quickly, what does reboot mean? Reboot means we need to do deep introspection and reflection on the way we do things currently, and then do them better. We need to ask questions like, why are we doing this? What do we need to do? How should we do it best? For whom are we doing? These kinds of questions, right? But it is about reviewing and then doing better. Reinvent is to come up with new ideas and with innovations in products, services, processes, and systems. Because both demand and supply are shifting. They may change fundamentally. And therefore, we need to be able to keep ourselves ready, to be proactive, and to catch the tide when the new tide comes in. And finally, reignite. When we come back from the crisis, we need to make sure that at that time, we have dreamed the impossible dream and raised the aspirations of the organization so that we can climb to newer heights when it comes back. So this is then 4 focus areas and 3 lenses, which I would recommend to you. I would request if each one of us can remember that the leader's role is crucial. Leader must reflect reality, must give hope yet, and must be empathetic. Accept no limits, do alternative thinking, but above all, drive positive change in the lives of the stakeholders and communities in which we operate. This is not a 100-meter dash. It's going to be a long marathon, but we need to step up. We need to remind ourselves, if not now, then when do we step up? And if not you, then who is going to step up? With this, I finish my short discourse and I hand you back to Anil Sachdevji.
Thank you, Rajiv ji. That was very clear and nice. And thank you for your guidance. And Veena ji, now we have you sharing your views, Veena. Veena ji, are you there? Yeah, go ahead, Veena ji.
I have seemed to have lost.
Yeah, Veena ji, we could see you just a minute back. Yeah, now you are back again. Yeah, go ahead. Okay, we need to unmute you. You need to unmute yourself, Veena ji.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can. Yeah.
Okay. So thank you, Anilji. And good morning, everybody. At the outset, I'd like to compliment Vicky for having taken up this topic, which is so pertinent in today's times. And I'm thankful to them for having given me this opportunity to be here today. I'd like to start with a small quote of Mahatma Gandhi. And he said that the future depends on what you do today. So in spite of the fact that we are in highly turbulent times, as Anilji said, what we do today is going to impact our tomorrow. So we really need to be very, very careful on the actions and the decisions that we take today. I've always believed that industry at heart is a people's business. And it's not business that creates value, it's the people that create value. So at any given point of time, the people perspective in an organization for the success of an organization, you will all agree, becomes most important. Having said that, we will again recall the kind of turbulent, unprecedented times we are in today. Just a while back, maybe 3 months ago, we were all talking about Industry 4.0. We were talking about globalization, about demographic shifts. We were talking about exponential technologies. There's a study by FICCI and NASSCOM where they said these were the 3 steering forces. And how do we meet the challenges? But overnight, these challenges have changed. These challenges have today become very different. And in these given times, what are the areas which emerge for us, the larger companies, the smaller companies, the SMEs, to take action so that we can stand the tide of times and be up to be ready for the new future? The new normal is definitely going to be different. So Rajiv ji has already spoken about leadership, but I can't proceed further unless and until I talk about the importance, the most important area and leadership. It has to be agile, it has to be resilient today, because all actions that will happen today are going to be top driven. The workforce is shocked, and so is the leader. But then that's the reason why they are called leaders. They have to keep their people with them. They have to have an environment of faith, of trust, which is there. And in these present circumstances, a number of decisions will have to be taken. It could be layoffs, it could be pay cuts, it could be extended hours of work, it could be relocation, it could be so many of any kind of actions that could be taken. But for these decisions, I would urge all of you to take very conscious decisions, keeping the individual in mind, keeping the organization in mind, and keeping the ecosystem in mind. Because what's happening today is not necessarily going to be the situation tomorrow. We will see a brighter day. So, no knee jerk reactions at all, please. Now, having said that, the next point which comes to my mind is communication. Communication and communication all the time, especially in these turbulent times. The workforce is sitting scared today. They want to hear from their leader. So, the communication has to be top down and bottom up also, but constant communication top down. What's happening? What's the situation? Where are we? And especially if conscious decisions, hard decisions are taken, they must understand the reasons for it. It's only when they understand the reasons. So that kind of employee outreach should be there all the time, especially today when the norm is work from home till the lockdown is lifted. It's very all the more important how you keep your employees engaged as well as possible on the work. Maybe you could think of some meditation exercises. You could think of some other way of interacting with them, somewhere where they feel that they belong, that ownership is there, that feeling of bonding is there. The next point which comes to my mind is you need to have some kind of a mechanism by which you are able to, the leader is able to maintain the culture of the organization. You would understand that culture is the unifying factor within an organization, a very subtle area, but it bonds all of us together. It's the culture of transparency, of ethics, of care, of concern, how you've been able to keep your people together all this while. It's the leader's duty today to see that culture is maintained and it's not tarnished, because then you will have your entire workforce. You create an environment, you will have your workforce behind you, even with pay cuts, because they know that their leader is keeping them safe. In fact, I would advise you this would be the right time to raise the social capital. What you would be doing today, you will reap the benefits of it tomorrow. So there may be losses. I know it's easier to preach than to practice, but my advice would be focus on these areas. So these are the areas which you are seeing today, but the challenges are going to be even more post the lockdown is lifted, say from the 4th of May, hopefully. The challenges are going to be much more, because on one hand you will be having work from home, you'll be having work from office or from the shop floor, but at the same time the social distancing is not going anywhere for some time. So the full strength coming to work is going to be, for a long time you're not going to have that. So in that scenario, how are you going to manage your work? So some kind of reskilling is required, the kind of multitasking is required. You'll need to do multi-skilling for people. Your job roles. So this is the time today, 2 weeks down the line, you'll be opening up. You need to do a lot of planning of your workforce. What kind of job roles they're going to change? What kind of duties you're going to give them? The kind of segmentation of employees that's going to happen. All that needs to be considered with open eyes today in consultation with your people, so they don't feel that they are in some kind of a tight spot and they don't know what's happening. So multi-skilling would be the norm of the day. So I would like to end with 4 areas of focus, which I feel each leader would have to look at. The first would be the leader would need to redesign the workforce and the machines. So the job roles, how are you going to manage the SOPs for that? The second is going to be that you will need to re-engineer, reskill rather. I would say the number two would be reskill, multi-skilling, the different kinds of learning development programs you will need to go have your workforce going through. The third would be redesign. Sorry, it would be re-engineer. When you talk about re-engineering, it is optimizing your workforce. And the last would be reconstruct. So it's redesign, it's reskill, it's re-engineer, and it's reconstruct, where you will reconstruct your teams, you will reconstruct the relationships within the organization, and ensure that the health, the safety, and the security of your employees is kept at large. And I'm sure we'll all together be able to meet these times. So this so much for now. I'll come in, be happy to come in later. Thank you, Anilji.
Thank you, Veena ji. Thank you. I'm going to speak. On one hand, I advise and work with some of the largest companies in the world. I also coach some of their CEOs and chairmen of boards. On the other hand, I run a small company myself, the Grow Talent Company or the School of Inspired Leadership. We recently spent 65 crores into building a new campus in Manesar. And just when we were looking to take many students there, and we had taken a loan from HDFC Bank for 20 crores and everything was going very well, this crisis came. We had an executive education and consulting business, and the first thing that clients do is they shut off the tap of spending money on training and such activities. So even as I speak to you, I am experiencing all the pains and difficulties of running a small company. So when I am trying to talk to you, it is not just as an advisor to large companies, but as an entrepreneur myself who is wanting to serve the world, the extreme difficulties that we are experiencing and what we are doing. Therefore, I come out of understanding the situation that many of you are in right now. Here is my guidance, and I'm going to take you through 3 sets of questions. I want you to take a paper and pen or your cell phone to make notes. These are 3 important questions. First question. When were you at your happiest, best? When you did your best work? Let the memory come back to you. Who were the people involved? What was special about that experience? How did you enable the best work to emerge? And what does this teach you about who you are as a person? Things you have the talent inside you because you have done it in the past. आपके अंदर वो सब गुण हैं जिसकी वजह से आपने बहुत अच्छा काम किया है. आपके सद्गुण, आपके मूल्य, आपकी qualities. I want you to honor the talent you have, which has made you do the best work. So at the end of this reflection, write down the top strengths you have or the power of values you have, which give you strength. आपके संस्कार हैं, आपकी upbringing है, the way you have experienced the world. What is your own strength? First question. Please write now. The second question. Who are the people who matter most to you in your life? It could be family. It could be the people you work with in the workplace. It could be the customers you serve because they are extremely important. It could be your business partners who depend upon their future on you. Who are the people who are most important? Then, what are their needs you are inspired to serve? that there is a specific need. For example, I have an older parent and that person is feeling alone, and I must create the time to talk to that person. The people who have worked with me from inception, today they don't have enough cash. I want to do something to help them. I want to help their families. Please write this down. Now, third, how can I use my own strengths and the power of my own values to serve the needs of people who matter to me? How can I use the power of my own strength, my own values to serve the needs of those who matter to me? Please write this. Now, what will I do from this moment onwards to leverage my strengths to serve the needs of people? How will I do that? And therefore, what do I need to learn? Maybe I was very good in managing cash and I had the natural intuition for money, जो पड़ता system जो हमारे बिरला ग्रुप में यूज होता है. मुझे कैश फ्लो का बहुत अच्छी नॉलेज थी. I had a good knowledge of that. But I was not good at speaking my mind to people. You know, I always hesitated to tell my people because there was something, I'm an introvert. I cannot open my heart, but I'm very good at the numbers and the analytical. Now, I'm conscious of what I'm good at. I am also conscious of what I need to learn. If I need to learn that, then answer the question. If I need to learn how to get out of my introvert nature, how to communicate with my people, I need to go and ask people for help. I have never done that. As a small businessman, I have never gone and asked too much people for help because I don't know. I feel very embarrassed to go and say to somebody, I need your help. I need this help from you. There is something in my heart that prevents me. Please write down what prevents you from realizing your own potential for doing your best. What is stopping you right now? You say, I don't know how to organize this cash. I'm feeling overwhelmed. I'm feeling fearful. I don't know what will happen 6 months from now. All this. So what do I need to learn? In order that I can use my strengths, what do I need to learn? What do I have to overcome? Then ask, what is the best method in which I learn? Some of us learn by reading. So maybe we would like to read the right things rather than depend on fake news and media. Read the right credible things I need to read. Number two, I learn through dialogue. Can I consciously, instead of wasting my time talking to all kinds of people, can I consciously choose the 5 people I should more spend time with, whether through WhatsApp or phone or any other format? Those people whom I need to learn with, because I naturally learn through dialogue. Can I choose the 5 people that I must spend time with? Swami Vivekananda said, the company of people you keep, especially in crisis, has a profound impact on you. The people who will give you positive things or people who will keep sending you messages about doomsday. ये हो गया, हमारे यहाँ पर ये हो गया, ये weakness है. The media's job is to look at bad news. By observing media and social media, you may be reducing your capacity to take charge of your life and your work. So how can you hang around with people who matter to you? If you are the one, like some of us, we learn by recording what is happening. Every day at the end of the day, I record before going to sleep. When was I at my best? When did I really do things which really matter to me today to serve the needs of people who matter to me? And when you make a habit of noting that down, that moment today I was using my strength towards things that matter, and the moment I was feeling inadequate and fearful, and so I need to talk to these people, I need to read this. You are going to teach yourself how to rise in your own eyes. I want to say something else which is very valuable. Once you define the way you learn and you start practicing that, remember your own emotional well-being, your own fears, your own feeling inadequate can be overcome by doing two simple things. Taking special effort to thank people who are important, who work with you. Thank them, even though they are not doing some great work today, but appreciate them. Be compassionate to people. If you can't give them money, if you have to speak the truth, say, मेरे पास कैश नहीं है, मैं आपकी अगले महीने तनख्वाह नहीं दे पाऊंगा. क्या हम टुगेदर कुछ नया रास्ता ढूंढ सकते हैं? क्या हम सब लोग कुछ ऐसा कर सकते हैं जिससे हम सब मिलकर अपनी संस्था को संभाल सकते हैं? Can you come out with innovative answers? Let's convert our fixed salary into partly fixed, partly variable, depending upon cash we receive. And can we start doing some new things to earn revenue? One person from handloom sector just asked me, what do I do in my sector? Simple input, and then I'll keep quiet and wait for question and answers. I got a call from Ashraf Omar, the chairman of Brandix Group of Sri Lanka, who's a dear friend and client. They are the largest employer of Sri Lanka, 40 factories, 1 lakh people. They are in the textile sector. They supply to all the world brands. He has a 1,000-acre textile, park in Vishakhapatnam. He was telling me, Anilji, I am inspired to use my capability to make respirators. I want to retool. Can you put me in touch with this global company that can give me the technology very quickly to do that? Of course, Brandix is a very big company, but you in the handloom sector, can you quickly develop and use your skill for some products that are needed in the market? That means for doing that, you will have to overcome your fear and you will have to focus on what you love and what your own strengths are. Love gives you the courage. When you love something, when you love doing something for people, it will give you the courage, it will overcome your fear, and it will develop your resilience. When you thank others, when you appreciate others, and when you go to serve, your own power will go up. I can guarantee you. And lastly, I just want to end by saying, I once heard Sadhu Vaswani ji, and he said something very simple and nice, which in the Indian context is so important. He said, at the time when every hour changes, now it will be 12 shortly, say, I am not alone. God is with me. I am not alone. God is with me. Every hour. And he told us, if you do that every hour in your waking hours and say, I am not alone. What is God? Unlimited potential inside you. As long as there is life, there is hope. There is life, you have the hope, you can make a difference. So I want to thank you very much for giving me this chance to share my views. And now we open up the whole conversation for the next few minutes for a Q&A. So already there are some questions. I think, let me ask in the chat, some questions came up. One person said, we are into this difficulty. This person has, they are in printing and publishing, which has taken a back seat. Is there any guidance on how we can take our sector, printing and publishing sector? Would any of my fellow panelists want to respond to that? Okay, I have some interesting idea for printing and publishing. This morning, I was talking to our partners in Canada, the Royal Roads University, which is one of the best universities in Canada. For 25 years, they are learning digital learning. For 25 years, they were one of the first ones to do online learning. Now they are saying the printing and publishing industry, which was supplying 30% of the training materials and everything else for education, they are asking them, can they convert printing and publishing into developing digital content? That means from a printing and publishing in the physical form, can you do printing and publishing in the digital form and tie up with universities and education providers who can take your capability and convert that into developing content for your industry? So this is what is just one idea that strikes me, but there are already several questions. So let me ask the second question to, I'm sure my both Veena ji and Rajiv ji will answer this. What employee engagement activities we can do during this lockdown? Can you give some example?
Yeah, I think Veena ji may want to go first because in fact she talked a lot about employee engagement.
Hanji, Veena ji.
Yeah, so what we could do, think of doing is maybe you could have them you could orchestrate certain programs where they can hear leaders, where they can hear dialogue with people which are encouraging, and you could encourage them to, maybe you could have some kind of yoga exercises for them, some, because you need to stress free at this point of time, maybe some meditation, maybe for the families you could think of having some kind of games, because now everything is work from home, so everyone is online these days. So these are certain thoughts which come to my mind because families are at home together, so maybe you could think of doing certain things to keep all of them engaged together.
Rajiv ji.
Yes, to this I just want to add that there is a lot of reskilling, making available new streams of knowledge, either those which are going to be immediately relevant at the workspace, or it could even be something which people are interested in, which they normally never have the time to go into, but you make them available. So in addition to all the things that Veena ji said, can we, and of course all this would have to be done digitally, make available knowledge and reskilling. Also, I think even just providing people the opportunity to engage and chat, that by itself is a very, very important thing. So just creating a platform where people can come in and fixing a time where, say, for 1 hour, we have a conversation. And I think that itself would be excellent in addition to whatever has been said.
I would build upon what both Veena ji and Rajiv ji said. In our own school, we have a virtual morning circle. We used to have a morning circle in all the places. In the factories I was in charge of, in Eicher, in the consulting companies I have built, we have a practice every morning of a morning circle. That means we recite a prayer. We all stand in a circle. Now we do it virtually. And after that, people share what are they going to be doing today. And each one shares their brief plan. In the evening, we have a 30 minutes review, which is facilitated by different leaders, in which everybody says, this is what I did today. And this is the help I seek for tomorrow. So a very simple process. People talk about what they are doing that day. And at the end of the day, they will say what they did and they ask for help from those whose help they require. This activity, and during the day, they show up on the platform. All of you are familiar with Microsoft Teams or Zoom or anything else where you can virtually form teams. I think 3 aspects of communication, Tanushri, especially to you, that are important. How are we seeing the future? What could be the scenarios that could impact us in different ways? The best one, the worst one, and maybe something in between. We have to talk to people and ask them to give you ideas as well. Or what do they see? The best one and the worst one, and so on. And lastly, how are we taking care of 3 simple things? Preserving cash, people's jobs and roles, and our clients and customers and our business partners. This aspect must be discussed. And when we talk about communication, you can't discuss with people that we are thinking of asking 30 people to go next month. You can't talk such things. But if you say, I have only 30 lakhs of cash and my salary bill is 65 lakhs, and I'm looking for ideas on where we can find money to pay the salary bill and how we can do that. You are being transparent. You are not causing a problem, but you are involving people's involvement in the issues that you are facing. That's what, when you hear people that over communicate, make it very authentic and transparent. Nobody has the answer to this question, but people are asking that. Okay. Now, one person is asking, and to all the panelists, you may have seen that question. The travel fraternity as a major issue. No hotel, no airline, no clients. Any suggestions for the travel fraternity? Yeah, Rajiv ji.
Uh, I don't know whether this will help, but are there alternative uses for which space is required? For example, I know that in Club Mahindra, they have offered up their resorts as quarantine facilities. And in several resorts, the state government has accepted and they have been converted into quarantine facilities. If there are places, for example, which need to house doctors, nurses near hospitals, are there places where, say, migrant workers can be housed? Now, I don't know. This may or may not generate revenue or cash, or it may also. I don't know. But thinking innovatively about alternative uses which are required right now for space to be used. This was my suggestion for consideration.
Thank you, Rajiv ji. I have one interesting idea. I was speaking to our Japanese partners. I sit on the board of global university called Shizenken University on their global board. Something very interesting, and I don't know if the travel industry can get equipped to defining and hosting this. There will be a need for virtual tours of people to learn. All over the world, there are something called learning expeditions. People want to visit, like a lot of people want to come to India to learn from our social sector. Let me predict something to you. The way India is handling this situation is not only extremely inspiring, even though we have the problem of migrant labor, we so far have handled the situation very well. And I can assure you that we will generate some best practices in this country, which will show to the whole world what is possible. There are so many people who want to learn from India today, learn from India's cultural wealth, social sector, spiritual sector, industry sector, everything. If the entire travel industry can say, how can we become virtual tour operators rather than physical tour operators? How can we tie up with the best organization to show the best work from India to the whole world? So this is a very interesting idea. Just this morning, I was thinking, I wish the entire travel industry was to take up not spending money on this, but doing something very, very different. And this, so virtual learning expeditions could be something. And Fiki and Vinti and Mrityunjay, you are listening. These study missions we have to go to different companies. If we can develop this as a product, virtual study missions, and some of your travel partners can actually be not part of physical travel, they could become hosts of going and showing this way and making this happen. This might be something very interesting.
Can I also add to that, Anilji,
Please.
that maybe they could also utilize this time for learning and development within their own teams?
Yeah, I agree, because a lot of hospitality sector people are sought after by even the technology industry and BPO industry on
Yes,
customer service. That's right.
yes,
They could tie up to release some of their skills and manpower with the large BPOs who are doing outsourcing work.
very true.
And also a lot of people in the hospitality sector naturally can be developing their skills for the healthcare, like customer care, like counseling people. They have the same skills which can be utilized. Okay. What are the long-term changes we see in the HR world? Rashmi Mancharamani is asking all of us. Long-term changes you see in the HR world.
So I would
I'm not able to hear what was said, but Veena ji and Rajiv ji, you want to respond? Long-term changes in the HR world.
Yeah, sorry. I think that in the HR world, a huge amount of the inner space development will become very, very critical. In addition to whatever skills we may require for, especially in the digital space, I think the skills to handle fear, to handle uncertainty, to handle all kinds of other inner turbulences will become very, very important. And therefore, people would have to learn the art and the science of managing the inner space very well, even as they learn how to handle things at the physical level in terms of efficiency and effectiveness.
Can I add to this?
Yes,
Hello,
Veena
can
ji.
you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Can you hear me? Yeah. So I would like to add to this that the entire work scenario, entire canvas is going to be changing. We are talking. We used to talk about globalization. Today, people are going to be looking inwards. So with those kind of challenges which are going to come, where the work is going to really increase within the countries, we'll have to now try to see what kind of HR strategies we need. Earlier, we were having HR strategies, footprints globally. Today, we will need to see how we can do everything ourselves, how we need to train our people for it. And it's going to be something very, very different from what we were planning to do maybe 2 months earlier. So, for internalizing things within the country, because all countries are looking within now, I'm very sure the situation will not too. So, you'll have to plan for that. Your HR strategy will have to now be aligned to your business strategy.
Yeah. Thank you, Veena ji. Let me add three specific things. HR should start hiring people for the company, not against the narrow job description and competencies for a position. Define what will work in the new company that is emerging. Do not go by narrow job descriptions. The concept of job descriptions, competency profiling will be out of the window. Focus instead on how you will hire people for the company and with the fundamental capacity to learn and the values such as courage and service. Second, be very aware of how you need to reskill and retool the entire workforce. The most critical role would be to retool and reskill and be very aware of how to bring that flexibility. Veena ji talked about multi-skilling earlier, but how do you create an organization which, for example, in the Suntory company in Japan, they have a concept called the amoeba organization. That means when people are required more in sales, more people shift from manufacturing to sales. When more people are required to shift to operations, they do that. This kind of flexibility to be brought in the company and the HR people to be aware of how to bring this reskilling and retooling. Number three, completely change the way you measure performance and the way you reward your people. Link it to the well-being of the company. Look at what you are measuring, not just the profitability, but the return on all kinds of investment, including social capital. What is the company doing? And link employees to the gain sharing. Something we have done in our own company, that the first part of our profit we donate to a charity whenever we have a profit. The remaining profit we share 1/3. 1/3 with employees, 1/3 with to be invested in the business, 1/3 available for shareholders, which in our case, since I was the principal shareholder, we were putting the money back into the business. If you can develop something like a gain sharing program that is very visible and everybody knows if we are in it together, if we together make the company successful, we will all gain. But if the company does not have a surplus, we will not have that. And redesign your compensation. Do not just keep giving only increases based on so-called market compensation. I think the entire industry will have to come together and design a gain sharing program rather than just focusing on individual increments linked to only individual performance. That is not going to work in the future. So these are three concrete things, in my opinion, which will have to be rethought. Rajiv ji, you want to add to that?
Yes, I want to say that working in teams is going to become absolutely critical. So this whole concept of simplicity, how do you have agile organization structures and processes so that there is distributed leadership, there is psychological safety, there are, if you like, self-managed teams. So this whole concept of a holacracy is going to become very important. The traditional command and control structures would have to go, and clearly then all the HR levers would have to be aligned to this distributed leadership thing. The second thing I think is very important, and which has been mentioned, is how do we give a huge amount of importance to the purpose of the organization? What are the core values and the purposes which determine the business strategy and the human capital strategy of the organization? I think this is a time where going back to the core purpose and the core values and the role that HR has to play will become very important. I wanted to add that.
Yeah, there is a very interesting question. The airport sector, the airports have badly impacted. For this sector, are there any new ideas? Airports. Okay, let me offer one very simple idea. Since airports have three principal competencies: one, operational planning and scheduling; two, safety and security in partnership with the government agencies; third, customer service and entire experience, whether from cleanliness to housekeeping to the entire experience. These three competencies, if airport providers were to ask themselves the question, strong operations and scheduling, customer service, safety, and this, could airports develop internal teams who could provide the same service to hospitals? Many hospitals could learn from the kind of things that airports are run at, because many of the hospitals, and many have been our clients, I can tell you that they can do with this kind of the quality and efficiency of airports. So if somehow the airport companies can find a way to partner with healthcare companies, there could be a win-win. There's another question here. Will work from home post a lockdown be scalable? After the lockdown is lifted, can the work from home be even scalable?
So I don't know what exactly is meant by that, but clearly, I think a lot of us are realizing that a lot more can be done from home and a lot more can be done virtually than we had ever imagined. So I think there will be a fairly big shift in the need to keep running for physical meetings, to travel long distances and things of that kind. So there will be a fundamental shift in this, and I think a lot more will get done virtually and from home.
Pradeep Malu wants to ask that as a part of good governance, would the role of boards and be impacted in any way because of the crisis and its respective committees? It's a very complex question, Pradeep, and we are running out of time, but I will only say one thing from my side, and Rajiv ji and Veena can add. I think the three things that the board will have to have greater oversight for: the risk management, very, very crucial. And in the short term, the way the company is choosing to handle its cash, because that's the most important resource. And third, the way it is taking care of its people and communication. I would think the board should have an oversight on the way the management is doing these three things in this critical time. That would, and I think this has to be done in the risk management committees, the HR committees, and so on. So Rajiv ji, your thoughts on this, and Veena ji?
Yeah,
so I think you've covered all.
Rajiv ji, yeah.
Yeah, so I think Anil ji, you referred to it about what are the kinds of leaders that we require, and what role can the board play in ensuring that the leaders who are chosen to lead the organization actually live the values and the characteristics that are required for a leader in the new normal. People who, for example, have the ability to use the whole mind, people who know how to manage fear and leverage failure, people who are open to all possibilities and are not prisoners of their past, people who know how to generate trust through things of that kind. What is the role that the board can play in, and maybe this is the nomination and remuneration and governance committee, the NRC, where you're choosing what kind of people come into senior leadership roles. I think that could be a very, very important part of the board.
Thank you. With this, I want to sincerely thank Veena ji. Despite all the technology challenges, thank you for showing up and thank you for your contribution. Thank you, Rajiv ji. And thank you, everybody, for being such a wonderful group. And I hand over now to the FICCI team and to Mrityunjay and Vinati.